I am recording this, so we'll be able to post it up on YouTube. So if there's something you want to see again, just go to our YouTube channel and we'll post it up there. I'm going to share the screen for this presentation here, and get it to present mode. Here we go. So talking about prairie rattlesnakes today, and prairie rattlesnakes are there are a lot of myths and just misinformation, I should say, out there about them. And hopefully today this will help us go through it. I'm going to start with just some of the basics as we go down through and then we'll get to rattlesnake safety at the end on how to be safe in rattlesnake country. All right, so let's go. So I start off this sorry, I want to say this is normally a 2-hour presentation that I've condensed down to try and get into the short time. So because Zoom is always we don't want to go too long. But I start out with this rattlesnake here. This one is clearly a very defensive snake. This snake is scared for its life. It's out on a road, and so what it's doing is it's rattling its tail and it's flicking its tongue, trying to figure out what I am. And that's all it is. This is not a threat to bite. This is not any sort of aggression. This snake would not be doing this if I had not engaged the snake. And I, of course, engaged it with my video camera. But that is the image that is used for rattlesnakes all over our media, TV, television, newspapers. This image right there is what everybody uses. And I'm going to show you a different side of rattlesnakes today that is not the defensive snake. But we do want to talk about that. And so the word rattlesnake. Think about that. So this is an exercise we do on our Center for Snake Conservation Facebook page every now and again. I'll post the word snake and have people, what is the first word that comes to your mind? And a lot of times it's run or scared or that. But actually on the Center for Snake Conservation's website, Facebook page, the responses are actually quite fun, because most of those people who are on that or following us like snakes. And so it's like fascination or what type or where, those kind of words. But what is this? This word, unfortunately, instills a lot of fear in humans. It just does. And we're gonna try and change that into fascination by the end of this 40-minute period. Sorry, I keep clicking on letting people in, so I lose my cursor. So Crotalus viridis is a scientific name of our prairie rattlesnake. It comes from the Greek word crotalon, which is that rattle, and viridis, which means green. And so it's really hard. I don't have a good picture of a rattlesnake that is truly green, but at the right light, especially right as the sun is setting, Crotalus viridis, our prairie rattlesnakes, they look green. And people a lot of times will say to me, "You have a green snake," or "There's a green snake," and it's just, no, that's just a prairie rattlesnake. I don't know why I'm getting all these notifications now. And then we have, if you notice, both these snakes here are hiding from me. One is hiding in a hole, and one is hiding under its own body coils. And this is typical of a rattlesnake. They're not that, the word aggression or aggressive should not go with them. So rattlesnakes evolved about 12 to 14 million years ago in North America, and they occur nowhere else in the world. I take that back, because there's one species that goes down into central and the northern part of South America. But that's just one species. The rattlesnake diversity is in the highlands of Mexico and the Sky Islands of Arizona. If you really want to see a lot of they're tiny and really fun rattlesnakes. But we're only talking about the prairie rattlesnake today. So rattle evolution, if we watch this bull snake here, and this is the only other snake we have in the presentation, watch it rattle its tail or buzz its tail. And the bull snake will actually do something different as well. Let me play that again. They'll hiss with that. And I don't think you can hear this one hissing, but they'll hiss with that tail buzz. And so a lot of people say that the shaking of a rattlesnake's tail evolved as a way to get the attention of a larger animal and potentially intimidate prey. And rattlesnake evolution, their rattle evolved way after the tail shaking behavior. And so the only thing that a rattlesnake did was perfect it. And by perfecting it, we'll see. I'll show you what I mean by perfecting it. So here we go. Watch this rattlesnake. Oh, I hit pause. Sorry. Uh-oh, wrong way. Technical difficulty. Cameron's messing up. All right, so here, watch this rattlesnake rub its tail. So it's vibrating the muscles in its tail 50 times per second. And all this is on the tip of its tail is just dead scales or fingernails, practically. So as the snake sheds, when we think rattlesnakes evolved, they were shedding and a little bit of skin got stuck on it, and that made them better at making noise than without that shed skin. And then the next time it shed, another piece of skin got stuck on the tip of their tail, and that made more noise. And so it just keeps going on and on and on like that until you have a rattle. And so let's watch this again. At 50 times per second, it's moving here. And scientists don't know how they can maintain it, but they can maintain this for 2 hours. They can maintain a vibration at 50 times per second. Just incredible. And to see it up close, you can see how fast that's just going. And then that's how it makes the noise. The rattle is hollow, and so it's just, and when it hits together, it makes noise. So if the rattle was soaking wet, it's not going to make much noise. It has to be dry and hollow. But all right, so now let's go to how to identify our prairie rattlesnake. Some of you guys have seen this video before. This is one that we use in all our snake presentations. I'll probably use this video again on Tuesday night when I do all our snakes. But so a rattlesnake has a brown spot circled by white. All right, and then of course you have the rattle on the tip of the tail, but you can't always see the rattle. And so that's what I wanted to show you here is when you have these brown spots circled by white, and then towards the back of their body, they're bands. They turn into bands just like this. And so so just kind of a evolution or a change. And then on their heads, this is unique to rattlesnakes. We have these 2 white stripes. Bull snakes don't have those white stripes. And this facial pit, that's the heat sensitive pit. Now, if you're this close to a rattlesnake, you're probably too close. And so I don't want you to try and identify it. But look, now we're far away from the snake. We can see the facial stripes, the heat sensitive pits, and then those brown spots bordered by white. Brown spots bordered by white. No other snake in Colorado has that. So here's a snake crossing a trail. The eye stripes are visible. The circles bordered by white. You can see the white there. And then as you go down, this one was a postpartum female. We'll talk about reproductive, but she just had all her babies. That's why she's got all that loose skin. And then, of course, the rattle on the end of their tail. And that's what makes the prairie rattlesnake a prairie rattlesnake. And we're lucky here in Boulder County. We only have 1 species of venomous snake. Actually, I think that's really bad luck. But if you're out and about with your dogs and you don't want to encounter snakes, it's pretty good luck that we only have 1 species of venomous snake that we have to worry about. So here's the prairie rattlesnake's distribution across the country. So there is one other species of snake that has a larger rattlesnake that has a larger range than this one, and that is the timber rattlesnake from back east that goes from New England all the way down to Florida. But look at this. It occurs in Canada, all across Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota. Here's Wyoming's distribution. And then in Colorado, you can kind of see how it snakes around. It's over in Steamboat Springs, and then down here, and then it goes the Four Corner Way. It goes way into Arizona, and then down into Mexico. Huge range for this prairie rattlesnake. Anywhere where there's prairie, they'll be there. All right. So size. Now in Colorado, on average, they're less than 3 feet long. If you go to Kansas and you go further south, longer growing seasons, they get bigger. They can get a lot bigger one. Largest one I've personally seen in Boulder County, that back when I was doing a study and I was actually catching them, measuring them, was just over 39 inches long. There's another one I've encountered several times this year already. He is a beast. I'm not going to catch him. I'm not going to ever do that with him, but he is definitely over 39 inches long. But on average, they average about that 3 foot, just under that 3 foot length. And look at this picture here. You can see this is a defensive rattlesnake, but you can see all the identifying characteristics: the white eye stripes, the facial pit, the brown spots bordered by white, and the rattle. All right, so diet. Now this is what we call a landmine or a cow patty, and this is a rattlesnake that's hunting. Notice you can't see its tail. They don't want you to see their tail when they're hunting because they want to hide it, because if it blows in the wind, it makes noise, and that'll alert their prey. And their prey is mostly rodents. They will eat birds, and they will eat lizards. There's some people out there that will say that they'll eat grasshoppers too, but here's one that had just eaten a prairie dog. They eat prairie dogs and cottontails. So when people are always asking me, like, why do we have so many rabbits, or why are there so many prairie dogs? My answer is because we don't have rattlesnakes anymore. And rattlesnakes are really important for maintaining an ecological balance, especially with prairie dogs. They don't just eat prairie dogs. They change the prairie dog's behavior enough that the prairie dog populations won't ever go as high. So where you have rattlesnakes, you don't have that moonscape appearance where, like, I don't know if you guys have been up on Davidson Mesa in Louisville. There's no rattlesnakes there, and it's just noxious weeds and dirt where the prairie dogs occur. And that's not what it should look like. It should be very diverse grasses and forbs and lots of other things. Yes, rattlesnakes definitely control pests. They do a great job of it. And actually, we're not going to talk about it in here, but rattlesnakes can control or help with disease. So things like bubonic plague or Lyme disease. There's been a direct correlation in Massachusetts with Lyme disease and rattlesnakes. Where you don't have rattlesnakes, Lyme disease is crazy high in infections in humans. But where you do have rattlesnakes, the infections are way down. So they really do help with not only pest control, but disease control. All right. So look at that. So just look at that cow patty again, is what I like to call them, because they're almost invisible, and it's just hunting, and it does not move. It will not move. And this is the snake that actually bites people that by accident. Because if you put your hand or your foot right here, it's hunting. It's waiting. Actually, I'm going to pause this right here a little bit. Let me see if I can pause it. Because this is kind of neat. I don't talk about this elsewhere. See how its jaw is sitting right on its body? So anything that moves here sends a vibration through the ground. It hits the body, and the snake hears it. So their jaw is attached to their inner ear. So just because they don't have ear openings doesn't mean they can't hear. They can hear, actually can hear very, very well, because they feel their eardrum is their bottom jaw. And so if you step here, they're immediately woken up, or you put your hand down, and that heat sensitive pit that's right here senses warmth, and it's a reaction to strike. And those are the bites that are actually the dangerous bites, not the defensive bites, the ones where they're trying to catch and kill something to eat. And that's where they just will lash out to because they're hungry. And those are the ones that unfortunately are a little bit more dangerous than a defensive bite. All right, so the reproductive ecology of rattlesnakes is just unbelievably fun. That's the best way I can say it. Is it's really, really fun. They have male-to-male combat. And so if we watch these two snakes here, they are competing for a nearby female. And so two males just run across each other normally in the wild, don't fight. But if there's a female nearby who's receptive to mating, this is the outcome. And these are two big males. This is in North Boulder, and they just for 15 minutes just battled each other like this. And then what surprised us is normally the loser gets chased away. I don't think there was a loser in this battle, because they both went down the same hole. So both went down the same prairie dog hole. And it just, if you watch them, it's just a wrestling match. A lot of people will say that this is mating. This is not mating. This is definitely two males who are just saying, I'm bigger and stronger for a nearby female. And where this was filmed, there was actually was a maternity colony where the females, that's the next thing we're talking, they're ovoviviparous, and that just means that the female retains an egg inside her body, never puts a shell on it. It incubates inside her, so she can control the incubation temperature by basking or going in the shade, basking, and then the eggs never dry out. They never become like if you lay your eggs and it's a drought year, your eggs might desiccate, or that just means dry out and shrivel up and then never survive. But if they only give birth every other, if you keep your egg inside your body, you can control how soon or what temperature they're incubating, the environment, and it's a type of maternal care. But and they only have 3 to 12 babies at a time. And for me, this is the big conservation concern with rattlesnakes, is because every dead rattlesnake you see is a huge hit to the population. Because if they're only reproducing every other year, let's say it takes them 6 years to become reproductive size, and then they only live to 20, they're only reproducing 6 times. They only have 3 to 12, or let's say on average, between those 6 times they reproduce, they have 6 babies. So that's 36 babies that one female produces, and that's all she produces. Compared to a bull snake that can lay 20 eggs a year, and that's why we see bull snakes still living in Louisville and Lafayette, and you don't see rattlesnakes anymore, because rattlesnakes, when they have a really hard time repopulating areas where they've been extirpated. And extirpated means locally eliminated. And that's just it's just an unfortunate part of their ecology. So and the more humans we put in the environment, the more dead rattlesnakes there are. It's a long-term, it's almost, I don't know if you've heard of the conservation concerns of turtles. It's the same sort of ecology, a long-lived organism that needs to have their babies survive in order to replace themselves. All right, maternal care. We're gonna watch like 2 minutes of a female rattlesnake protecting her babies. And so this is one of my favorite things to video when I go out and looking for snakes. And this is a female rattlesnake. She has babies underneath this rock, and look what she's doing. So we call this periscoping, and she's flicking her tongue rapidly. This is very differently from the defensive tongue rip. She's trying to figure out what came by and set a camera up at this hole. And so she's flicking her tongue, and she'll do this all day long, waiting for something that might come to attack her babies or eat her babies. And when I put out cameras like this, one of our biggest rattlesnake predators, besides birds and besides cars, are snakes. And the eastern yellow-bellied racer is a snake-eating snake. And so one of the things I want to see is what happens when a snake comes to this burrow. Oh, here comes a baby. Baby's going to come out. She's thinking it's okay. But what happens when a racer comes to get her babies? Is she going to attack it, or is she just going to let it happen? And there's evidence. There's a group of people studying a pygmy rattlesnake in Florida, and the female chases the predatory snake away, which is really kind of neat. And so we want to try and figure out what's happening here in Colorado with racers and rattlesnakes. So watch, even though her babies are out and about now, she's still flicking her tongue, trying to figure out what's going. And I didn't include what's happening out and about. I didn't include it in this video, but I haven't. It's not as good. It's not as nice of a video quality. But a female, when I walk, you can see me walk by in the background. Mom comes out of the burrow and warns all the babies to get back in. And she had one baby who wouldn't go back in, and she taps it with her head. She taps that baby, and as soon as she taps it, it's right back underneath her in the hole. It's really fascinating to know that these snakes take care of their babies. And one of the leading rattlesnake researchers in the world, visited us last September, and we took him out to show him this, and he reminded me, and I haven't changed my vocabulary yet, but rattlesnake babies are called pups because of how moms take care of their pups. They're almost like, it's almost like a female dog taking care of her babies and her pups. And so rattlesnakes, we'll just call them pups from here on out. But isn't that just amazing to watch? She was alert the entire time, waiting for me to come back or for some other predator to come and mess with her babies. All right, so let's see. And then this is a behavior that you didn't see in the video, but this is that same snake, and she's yawning, and it happens so fast that I decided to show you with a freeze frame of what's happening here. This is where its tongue goes in and out of its mouth. This is its glottis, right? That hole right there is the glottis, and that's a whole different thing. If you watched our feeding presentations, you'll get to learn about how the glottis helps the snake eat. But right up here are where the holes where the nostrils come down, and they have an organ underneath the skin there called the Jacobson's organ. And oh, I didn't want to do that. So what's happening here is she, instead of reaching out with her tongue and collecting scent particles and bringing them in and pushing them up in her Jacobson's organ, she's yawning, and that lets a lot more scent, just generic smells, go and touch her thing here. And snakes, there's a study out there on different rattlesnake species, but that showed that when the babies are present, when mom is protecting the babies or the pups, she yawns about 3 times more than she would yawn normally without pups around. And so it's just showing she's really smelling to find out what's going on, and she's very alert to predators. And look on this side. Remember, I didn't mention this earlier. When she's incubating her babies, she does not eat for that year until after her babies are born and have left her, which takes about 10 days after they're born. And so when you don't eat and you're not biting prey, you accumulate extra fangs. And so she's got double fangs on this one side, and fangs break off all the time. They have backup fangs up in here that if you break these off, a backup fang will come into play. And so when your fangs are your mechanism for getting food, you want to make sure you always have one. You don't want to be without a fang. And so that's why they have the backups. But I just thought it was neat that you can see the 2 fangs, because she hasn't eaten. This snake probably hasn't eaten in 9 or 10 months at the time we saw this. Why don't they eat? Great question. They're not eating because they're wrong way. They're not eating because they're just incubating their babies. So they can't go and find a mouse trail. They can't go and set up near a prairie dog hole and wait for food to come by, because since they have their babies inside their belly or inside their oviducts, not their belly, in the uterus, they don't want to expose themselves to being killed, and so they'll just stay under this rock the entire time. Where their energy comes from fat. So if you notice, rattlesnakes are big round snakes, and that is because they have a lot of fat stores in them, and then they'll use the fat to survive that fasting period. Plus, a snake's physiology, and we'll talk about this a little bit on Tuesday when we talk about snakes in general. A snake's physiology is to eat infrequently and go a long period of time without food. Their heart shrinks in size by 50%. Their intestines shrink by 50%. And we'll talk about the defensive bites here in a bit. I'll get to that question here in a little bit when we talk about rattlesnake safety. But their whole physiology is to eat. That's why pythons eat such big prey. A python sometimes can eat something and not eat for 6 months, and they're okay. They don't lose any weight. Our snakes, none of our snakes actually eat for 6 months. From October to March, they're hibernating and not eating, but they're cold, so they're not burning much energy. But snakes can go a really long time without eating, and their energy when they do need it, comes from fat. Okay, so rattlesnakes in Boulder County and where to find them. So rattlesnakes they can potentially occur anywhere in Boulder County up to about 8,500 feet. Now, oh, Marcus, they don't feed their young. They're young. Once their young are born, all the energy that's needed to become a baby is just like a chicken egg. Everything's inside their egg, but they just keep it inside their body. And then when they're that 7 to 10 days that they're with mom, nobody's eating, and then they disperse and they have to find their own food on their own. They'll find a little mouse trail and they'll coil up, like, remember we saw that, they'll coil up just like that cow patty snake, and just sit and wait for food to come by. But if you notice here, there is no difference, Connor, between the male and female rattles. Uh-oh. I didn't want to do that. I made this chat real big. So if you notice here, though, where Boulder is, and Louisville, and Lafayette, and Erie, and kind of there's no rattlesnakes over here. Now, it's debatable. I've heard of rattlesnakes near White Rocks, and that big ridge there. I have not seen one myself. That would be along Boulder Creek there, just east of J Road. But it would be great. That'd be something great right now. We have a snake count. If somebody could go there and find a rattlesnake there, we can at White Rocks, we can modify this little map on where rattlesnakes occur in Boulder County. But we don't, they're extirpated from areas near humans. And I get the question all the time, are they in Louisville? Are they in Lafayette? Are they in Erie? No, they have not been here for a long time. Now, one might show up if somebody were to bring it. And then the habitat in this, there's too many cars and too many roads, and too many cats and too many dogs for them to, yep. If you, yeah, the farther, yeah, out there, that's probably where Niwot is kind of up here in this green area. Yeah, so east of that. And so they do they do occur, they're spotty as you go further east. But yes, they can be there. So this map isn't perfect. This is just my hand drawing. I need some GIS map specialist to make us new county maps. If anybody knows anybody that wants to make snake maps, I'd love to have real maps made, instead of me just doing my Google Earth cut and paste. No, anything on Coal Creek would have been, if you're south of 36, it could have been rattlesnakes, but anything east of there is all going to be bull snakes, and bull snakes do a great, well, actually rattlesnakes, since bull snakes were, they can impersonate each other and they sound almost identical, and the people mistake them quite a bit. All right. But that's just where, so the reason I say that no longer occur there is I've been asking and looking myself for the last 13 years for evidence of it. And every photograph that's been seen or every dead one that's been turned up has always been a bull snake in those areas. It doesn't mean that they could, like, if you go over nearby, so rattlesnakes occur right here at the Omni, and then just across 36, that's great habitat.
Hi, how are you?
Awesome habitat. But one could maybe go underneath the bridge, but 36 now, with all the cars, is unfortunately a barrier to them. All right. How are we doing on time? We're doing great. So this is taken at Dowdy Draw, and this is why we have human and rattlesnake interactions. Is the ridge here is great rattlesnake habitat. Where's the water? Well, the creek's here. Rattlesnakes need to drink. They go down, they cross the trail, and they cross the trail, so they have to cross the trail twice. And that's where we have the interactions with rattlesnakes and humans, is typically on trails. But if you're off a trail, this is a lot harder to find a rattlesnake. Can you guys all see the snake? Yeah, this one's a tough one to see, but you can see there's its head, here's its body, and then down here's the rattle. This snake saw me long before I saw it. And so I always like to try and find a snake that never knew I was there. And this one clearly said, nope, I see you. It never rattled. It was prepared, but I didn't engage it. I stopped. I didn't want to get close. I wanted to get video of it doing its thing in the wild. And look at it, look right at me. He looks dead at me going, hey, I know you're there. But look how camouflaged that is. And if we're letting our dog run off leash, or we're letting our kids run off in the grassland in rattlesnake areas. Now, or during March 15th to October 15th, you might run into a rattlesnake that's really hard to see. And here goes a snake that's just slithering. You can watch it explore, and as it slithers by, it's just, I mean, that's pretty well camouflaged. They might be our best camouflage snake we have in Boulder County for being adapted for our areas. Yeah, Wonderland Lake is a great place to see them. Can rattlesnakes climb stairs? They can climb rocks. I don't know if they'd ever climb stairs, but they can definitely climb rock piles. All right, so here's how to safely observe a rattlesnake. We made this little video a while ago of snakes crossing roads and then in a rock outcrop. But look how far away we are. We're 6 to 8 feet away. The snake's never gonna they don't attack people. They never will attack you. Now, what do we do as humans? We come closer. We get too close to it. But watch this snake as it takes off here. Now, a defensive bite. Well, get back to that question. A defensive bite would be one where I stuck my hand down there. Watch it as the snake is always looking at me as he backs away, trying to get away. But if I stuck my hand down there and I engage the snake, and that's about 80% of the snake bites we call them illegitimate bites, where a human was doing something to the snake. And those are the defensive bites. An offensive bite would be one where it's sitting there as a cow patty and is hunting and would strike and bite. Another type of a defensive bite is if you step on it by accident. So if my friend here, Dr. Reed, who's looking around wearing his Tevas, we're looking for rattlesnakes in Tevas, look at his feet there, and he accidentally stepped on one. But since we're looking for snakes, we're going to talk about being snake aware here in a second. Chances are we're not going to step on it. But look, so we have the snake that retreated underneath a hole. It's nervous, rattling, and then it settles down and feels safe because we didn't engage it any further than this. We're standing above it, but that snake feels entirely safe underneath in this little hole there, and we're not going to mess with it any further. And this was taken before when it just went in the hole. That was my son counting the snakes we had seen that day. All right. So when I said snake aware, and if you remember the word snake, you can be safe in rattlesnake country. Stay on trail. That's the number one thing that's important. And that means keep your dogs on trail too. Dogs with snake bites are very different. Dogs see with their nose, right? And so they're going to run right up to the snake to smell it. And that's when they're bitten on the nose. The positive thing is 80% of dogs survive snake bites, which is really just amazing statistic because it is a defensive bite. The snake is not trying to kill the dog. It's trying to say, hey, I'm here, leave me alone. And that's why the dogs are able to survive the snake bites so well. And never engage, threaten, or approach a snake. Always give a snake room to escape. If you notice those videos, or even the snake that was in the hole underneath in the rocks, always give them a place to go. And if you give a rattlesnake a place to go, it's going to choose that rather than to get defensive. Know the snakes in your area. That's what you guys are doing right now. We're learning about the rattlesnakes. And on Tuesday night at 7 p.m., I'll talk about all 12 species of snake we have in Boulder County. So you can learn. We only have 12, so it's pretty easy to learn them all. If I could never be an ornithologist or somebody who studies insects, entomologist. There's just too many. With snakes, we got 12. It makes it simpler. And everyone, even the humans, go home safely. So if you stay on the trail, you don't engage, you give the snake room, and you know that it's a rattlesnake, we're all going to go home safe. All right, here's a few rattlesnake myths. This is how we study the females. We set up trail cameras, and that's how we study them and their behavior and watching them. And then just a snake coming out of a hole with it. You can see how amazing that tongue is. Be able to pick up scent particles. Rattlesnake myths. one of them out there is bull snakes eat, kill, or exclude rattlesnakes. That is false. So I hear a lot of times, oh, we have bull snakes, we don't have rattlesnakes. That's not true. I've seen them side by side. I've flipped rocks with having both a bull snake and a rattlesnake underneath that rock. They'll go down the same prairie dog holes together. They don't have any problem living side by side. Baby rattlesnakes are more dangerous than adults. This is a huge myth that is absolutely false. There is a difference in the composition of venom between a baby and an adult rattlesnake. Babies tend to have venoms that are more geared towards killing like a lizard or a smaller prey item than an adult who needs to have a lot of digestive enzymes in their venom so the prairie dog will digest instead of rot inside their belly. And so that's just so the venoms are different. But who's bigger? The adult. Who has bigger venom glands? So if we look on this snake here, we got a venom gland right here and a venom gland right here. The adults have the bigger venom gland. Adults are more dangerous than a baby rattlesnake because they have more venom when they do bite. And that's one of those myths out there that is just isn't true. Oh, and all snakes, babies and adults, can control the amount of venom that they can inject. So even a baby, I hear the myth that babies can't control how much venom they inject. No, they can. It's called venom metering, and the scientific studies show that when a snake strikes, it sizes up the prey item and injects how much venom it's going to need to digest that prey item. And then rattlesnakes are evolving to not have rattles. There was actually an NPR study on this, NPR story on this about 6 or 8 years ago. That is false. Rattlesnakes are not will still have rattles. There is a trend in rattlesnakes not rattling, and that's different from evolving to not have rattles. There's a trend, and that trend occurs in the southeastern part of the United States, where wild pigs or feral pigs are living, because pigs know how to kill and catch rattlesnakes, and the ones that rattle got killed. The ones that kept quiet didn't. Those rattlesnakes that kept quiet, they can still rattle. It's just they're making a behavioral choice not to, so they stay hidden. But if you engage them and you try and kill them, they're going to rattle at you. So that's another myth that's false. Rattlesnakes crossbreed with bull snakes. I've heard this one a lot. That is false. The genetics, the number of chromosomes and the chromosome match just does not happen. So they cannot. There are no hybrids between rattlesnakes and bull snakes. There are hybrids between bull snakes and some other species of snake, but most of those have occurred in cages, and it was more of a forced mating than a natural occurrence. But the rattlesnake bull snake one is false. And rattlesnakes will chase people out of their territories. That is false. They don't have territories in that sense that they're going to worry about a big giant something like a human and come after them. Now I say that. And last year I had this amazing experience. Watch this rattlesnake come right at me. Chased me. Watch this. Here he comes. He's looking right at me. And I wish I had my real video camera instead of just my silly phone at the time. But this snake came right up to me. He was definitely interested in what I was. And this could be construed as chasing behavior. But what really just happened, and is what happened before this video was taken, is really important. This snake had just won a battle between it and another snake. So it was fighting. Remember, we saw the two males fighting. This snake was fighting. Now watch its behavior change. It got to where my feet were. I had backed up. It got to where my feet were. It smelled me. It realized I was not another snake. It thought I was the snake that it had just gotten done beating up or wrestling and winning. And now that it realized that I was no longer a snake, this snake just quickly found a hole and said, "I'm out of here," and got away from me. So isn't that amazing? A snake that came right at me, it could have been construed as chasing, but it was not chasing, and it actually ended up just going down a hole. Once it realized that humans were in the area. They don't like being anywhere near us. They want to get far away from us. It's if given the space, a rattlesnake will always go away. All right, rattlesnake first aid kit. First off, don't panic. That's the number one thing. In any emergency, we always say that. That's the first thing of first aid, right? Is not to panic. But there are less than 10 deaths from venomous snake bites in the United States annually, and about half of those are captive snakes from weird places like from Asia and Africa that people have as pets. And so our doctors and hospitals can keep you alive, and you will not die from snake bite. The number one thing is a phone. If you are bitten by a rattlesnake, call 911 and tell them where you are. If you're way up, away from a trail, or you're way up, say you're rock climbing or you're hiking way far away, you can walk back to the parking lot where your car is. But tell them where to come to, because if you can reduce the time to get to antivenom, that's better. And so if you're walking, so if you wait up where you're bitten and you wait for them, they have to come all the way up in there, and then they're going to have you walk out anyways. And so you need to walk out yourself. Now, if you're unconscious, you can't, right? But if you're able to walk down to that parking lot. That's not going to make the bite any worse or anything better, anything like that. The next thing is a Sharpie, or any sort of way to mark on your skin where the bite occurred. And that's going to help when the swelling happens. And then every 2 to 5 minutes, you're going to want to make another mark where the swelling is. And I should be demonstrating this on my hand. I don't know if you guys, if my video, if you guys can see me talking, probably not. But say the snake bit me here. Here's the fang marks. I'm going to put a circle around where I was immediately bitten. 5 minutes from now, the swelling is here. And then 10 minutes later, the swelling's way out here. What that's going to tell me, I'm going to put little timestamps and write the time there too. What that's going to tell the doctor is how bad the bite is. So if it's swelling really, really fast, you've been really envenomated and you're going to need antivenom. Well, let's say you're bitten here and an hour later, there's no swelling. Chances are you don't need antivenom. You weren't bitten very badly. You weren't venom. There was not much venom injected into you. And it's going to save you a lot of money and shorten recovery time, because some people have bad reactions to antivenom. And then the other thing is your car keys. And I say car keys because if you're really far away from people, you can drive yourself to the hospital. There's been several herpetologists who have saved their own life because they drove themselves to the hospital instead of waiting for somebody to come to get them, because they shorten. Remember, we're all about shortening that time from when the bite happens to when antivenom can be taken in place. Don't use any of the kits. They sell the extractor kit at Walmart, worthless. They sell the snake bite suction kits with razor blades and a tourniquet at Walmart. Don't do that. Electroshock doesn't work. Whiskey doesn't work. Cold water doesn't work. The only thing that works is a cell phone and car keys. That's the only thing that works with snake bites. Let the doctors do the rest. And even with your dog, don't do anything else. Just go. And what's really fascinating is veterinarians are starting to treat snake bites not with antivenom, but with steroids. And they're having huge success on survival rates because the steroid is allowing the tissues that have been damaged to start rehealing and healing themselves. I don't think we're going to ever go that way with humans, because a human life is you can't really experiment with that. But you don't want to experiment with human lives, but for some reason vets can experiment with a little bit with dogs' lives, and it's really working though. It's really exciting. So questions: have I ever been bitten by one? No. I have several friends who have, while researching snakes, did some stupid things and have been bitten. And everybody survived, and everybody has all their fingers. And then I'm very careful with venomous snakes. I don't handle them unless I'm being paid to for research purposes. There's no reason to ever pick up a venomous snake. Even if it's in your yard, there's tools available so you never have to touch it. So you can stay away. You got to stay at least that 3 to 4 feet at a minimum. 6 feet's better away from it, and you'll never ever be bitten by it. And then about how much till the bite becomes fatal? With our prairie rattlesnakes probably are not fatal to humans, even without treatment. A lot of people don't get treatment, and they still survive. Now you're going to have massive tissue damage if you don't get treated, and that's a different thing. You have to start treating other things, even gangrene and rot. but our rattlesnake isn't fatal. In the last 50 years in Colorado, we've had one death, and the details of his death, he was killed at Table Mountain, and he died within 5 minutes. So that suggested he went into anaphylactic shock from the snake bite, and that suggested previous exposure to snake venom somehow. I don't know why he went straight into shock, but it's almost like he was allergic to the venom, and that's what killed him, was that the allergic reaction, not the venom itself. Best landscape, yeah. So, Travis, I'll have to get back with you about the landscaping stuff. The folks in Phoenix, Arizona, have it mastered on how to keep rattlesnakes out of their yard, and there's whole businesses down there generated for making a snake-free zone, and you can do it. It's expensive, but it is possible to do. Landscaping really, the best thing is no landscaping, because any shade that you prevent or you create, the snake's going to go get in it. Especially if you back up to open space, they're going to like that. And then if you feed the birds, that's going to attract mice, and that's going to attract snakes. But there's other things that you can do to keep snakes out of your yard. And I'm saying that folks from Arizona have definitely got it mastered on how to do that. Let's see here. All right, conservation concerns. I always want to. That's about the North Table Mountain. That just east of Golden there. That has a really, really good population. I would say Rabbit Mountain here if you just were looking at Boulder County is really good. Anywhere along the 36 corridor between Boulder and Lyons is just awesome rattlesnake area country. And then of course south there, believe it or not, where they built Rock Creek in Superior, that neighborhood, that was some really, really awesome rattlesnake habitat. And that's why there's still rattlesnakes. I mean, I think I've gotten 3, maybe 4 calls already this year for rattlesnakes in people's yard, and it's not even June yet, from in Rock Creek. But all those situations, the rattlesnakes go on their own, and they're pretty. We had to move one back to the open space, but most of them just disappear on their own because they don't like being around humans and they don't like being around dogs. But North Table Mountain is a really good spot to see them. And then as you go, if you really want to, if you want to see a rattlesnake, if you want to stay in Boulder County and see a rattlesnake, I always tell people to go to Rabbit Mountain. Its old name before they changed it to Rabbit Mountain was Rattlesnake Mountain, but they decided when that wouldn't attract people to go hiking there. All right, so our conservation concerns with these snakes, I talked a little bit about the reproductive ecology, but we have a lack of knowledge about snake populations in general. We don't know how many snakes are out there. We don't know what kills snakes besides cars, or how old they get, or how many babies survive after they're born. There's all these questions, and the problem is when you have most of the people who are studying snakes are graduate students. They get their master's in 2 years, and then they're done. They don't study snakes anymore. And so their studies are too short with a sample size of 5 to 6 to 8 snakes. That doesn't tell you anything about it. There was a study done recently at Table Mountain in Golden that was a great study. They were trying to figure out if snakes were attracted to trails. But they did it for 1 year, and they used snakes that they caught near trails. So, of course, the snakes showed that they were near trails. If that study was 5, 6, 8 years long, studying the same snakes, maybe that snake spent 1 year by the trail, but next year, because it ran into too many humans, next year it never came anywhere close to the trail. And so studies are way too short. We don't know anything about snakes at all compared to other species. Reduction in habitats. Every time I see a bulldozer, I know that snake habitat's being reduced, and that's a conservation concern for snakes. Viable populations need large tracts of land. So you can say, yeah, we still have bull snakes in Louisville, but what about gene flow? Now Highway 36 is a barrier to gene flow. So the snakes south of 36, or as it goes between Superior and Louisville, we're not talking about rattlesnakes here, but is now that as a snake can't cross that, now we have genetic isolation, which is not good for conservation. Prairie dog eradications. This is terrible for rattlesnakes. Rattlesnakes rely on prairie dogs for food and then hibernacula. A lot. That's where they go down in a prairie dog hole and spend 6 months hanging out for winter. It's amazing. Roads are the #1 thing for snakes, and then humans, and roads. All right, if you guys have kids watching, the next 2 pictures are dead snakes. I just wanted to give you a heads up before I go to them. And it's just showing you the reality of what humans and roads and the impact they have on snakes are. And the first one is this. This is a bull snake that was killed. This is the other non-rattlesnake in the presentation. Is a bull snake here that was killed by somebody who purposely went off the pavement to kill it. And you can see their tracks as they went over there to kill that snake. And then the next one was found by one of my board members, John Schneider, this year here in Boulder County. Somebody decided that they needed to kill that rattlesnake, and so they risked their own life by trying to kill it with rocks. This is more risky than just letting the rattlesnake live. They engaged it and they killed it. And this actually, it look based on the length of its tail, I'm just guessing here, and the fatness of its body, this was going to be a female who was going to give birth this year, and now she can't. And so that's just, when I say enough said, that's the reality that we live in, is that people have a fear of snakes, and leaving it alone is the #1 most important thing you can do. And it can never, ever bite you. If you think you killed it, and then a lot of people will pick it up after they think it's dead, and snakes can still bite you. They can still envenomate you after they're dead, believe it or not. All right, so then that leads me to what we're doing now to learn more, what the Center for Snake Conservation and my nature lab is doing now to learn more about snakes. And we have a citizen science project. It's called Project Snake. And what we ask for you guys to do is, when you do find a snake, especially a rattlesnake, or something you think is a rattlesnake, take a picture of it. And I just posted if you're on Facebook, I just posted a whole bunch of videos on how to safely take pictures of rattlesnakes, in particular on a road or out in the wild. And then I did another one from the bird's eye, or the other perspective, the camera perspective. But if you want to learn how to do that, they're easy to take pictures of because they don't go very fast. They're pretty slow snakes. And if you just give them their distance, they're never going to get angry or defensive, I should say, with you. And then you can email those photos to Project Snake at snakeconservation.org, or you can text them directly to me. And that's my phone number, 770-5000000. Yes, it's weird, but that's a real phone number. It's mine. You can text it directly to me, and we will, and then I can identify it first off, and we'll get it included. And then if you come into the lab, every time someone sends us a snake, we put a pin on our map. And so you can see that no rattlesnakes occur. You can see the rattlesnake that we use pink for rattlesnakes. We use pink, and so we put them up there, and you can see where rattlesnakes occur, which is really fun. And that's what I'm going to end with. Thank you, everybody. I'm so glad that we had 50 people watch this, which is just amazing that we can reach that many people. Hopefully, you guys can tell people about this. Maybe you want to join us on Tuesday where we talk about all the snakes, because we have 12 species. The rattlesnakes are cool, but have you ever heard of a black-headed snake? Or have you seen a milk snake? I mean, there's a lot of other really cool snakes in Boulder County. That's it. If you have a question now, you can answer it. I see some comments coming in. If you want to make a donation to the Center for Snake Conservation, we are a 501c nonprofit. I'm going to post a donation link that's associated with just this presentation on our Facebook page. Actually on my Nature Labs Facebook page, so that you guys, if you want to help us out, especially since we're not open, it would really appreciate it. We got a lot of animals we're trying to keep fed. All right, everybody. I really appreciate you joining, and find me a rattlesnake and send me a picture. I would love it. I would love it. All right, I'm gonna hit end.
Goodbye.